Imagine spending years carving a perfect picture into the earth. A creature hundreds of meters long and never, in your whole life, being able to see it. Because the only place it makes sense is from the sky, and you can't fly. I'm an architect, and there's a whole secret category of design built to be read from above, shapes whose true form is invisible to anyone on the ground. Which raises a strange, beautiful question. If no one could fly, who were these built for? The answer changes across 2,000 years, and it's really the story of who we imagined was watching from overhead. Designs you can only read from the sky, and the audience each one was really built for. Here's how an architect actually thinks about this. Almost every building has two readings. There's the one you get on the ground, walls, doors, eye level, and the one you only get from straight above, the plan, the footprint, the true shape. For almost all of human history, those two readings had totally different audiences. The ground-level view was for the people living there. But the plan could only ever be seen by whoever the builders imagined was up in the sky. And that audience changes completely with the century. So as we go, ask one question of every shape. Who, exactly, was meant to be looking down? Start in the Peruvian desert 2,000 years ago. Across the Nazca Plains stretch hundreds of enormous shapes, a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, and dead straight lines running for kilometers. And the method is almost insultingly simple. The desert floor is dark, sun-baked stone over pale sand. So they just lifted the dark stones away to expose the light ground beneath. A line drawn by removal, a path the color of bone across a plain the color of rust. And because it almost never rains there, those cleared lines have survived 2,000 years. But here's the thing that stops everyone. Most of these figures only resolve into an image from the air. The people who made them could never once have seen them whole. They built a hummingbird the size of a football pitch and lived their whole lives unable to step back far enough to see it was a hummingbird. So who was it for? And no, not aliens. We can see the half-finished lines, the practice sketches, the wooden stakes they used to keep them straight. The honest answer is, we're not certain. The best evidence points to ritual. Some lines are paths, walked in procession. Many seem tied to water, offerings in a desperately dry land, begging for rain. Some aligned to the rising sun. Put those together, and the most likely audience isn't a person at all. It's the sky itself. The gods they believed lived up there and controlled the rain. They weren't drawing pictures for each other. They were drawing them upward, for an eye in the clouds they hoped was looking back. Now cross to North America, and a different way of writing on the land. Across the upper Midwest, cultures left behind effigy mounds, piles of earth shaped, from above, into animals. Birds with wingspans longer than a city block. Bears, turtles, panthers. In Wisconsin alone, over 3,000 of these animal-shaped mounds have been recorded. And the most famous sits in southern Ohio. The Great Serpent Mound, a snake more than 400 meters long, uncoiling along a ridge with what looks like an egg in its open jaws. Unlike the Nazca Lines, these are built up, not scraped away, but here's the catch. The serpent is low, at most a meter or so high. Walking the ridge, you can barely tell you're standing on a giant snake at all. Its true shape, the curling body, the coils, the egg, only reads from above. They sculpted a 400-metre serpent that almost no living person could ever have seen as a serpent. Sound familiar? So again, who for? And again, honestly, we debated. Some of these mounds are burials, but the serpent holds no bodies. What it does have is alignment. Its head points to where the sun sets on the longest day of the year. The coils may track the solstices and the moon. So the leading reading is that these shapes were ceremonial, sacred animals laid into the earth, tied to the sky's calendar, built for the ancestors and the spirit world the builders believed were watching. Two cultures, two continents, no contact between them. and both decided the most important audience for their greatest artwork was the one in the sky. Fast forward 1,500 years, and the audience overhead changes completely. It stops being a god and becomes a soldier with a map. In 1593, the Republic of Venice built a brand new town from scratch called Palmanova, designed by Vincenzo Scamozzi as a perfect nine-pointed star. From inside, walking its streets, it feels like an ordinary town, a central square, roads spoking outward. From above, it's a flawless geometric snowflake, and that snowflake is not decoration. It's a weapon. Look at the points of the star. Each one is a bastion, a sharp arrowhead jutting out from the wall. And the genius is in the angles. By pushing the defenses out into those points, the soldiers could fire sideways, along the face of every wall. Cannon and musket from two bastions crossed in front of every stretch of rampart, overlapping fields of fire, so an attacker rushing the wall had nowhere to stand that wasn't being hit from two directions at once. No blind spots, no dead ground. The old tall straight wall was finished, cannon knocked those flat. This is low, thick, and angled. Geometry is armor. And you can only fully read that geometry is a plan, from above, drawn by the engineers, studied by the generals. This is the moment, around the Renaissance, when architecture starts being designed as a diagram, a shape that has to work first on paper, and only second for the people who'll live inside it. The audience overhead has come down out of the clouds, but it's still not you. It's the man with the map, planning where the next shot falls. A century later, the audience overhead changes again, and this time it's a single human being, a king. At Versailles, the gardener André Le Notre laid out the grounds as enormous, intricate patterns called parterres. Swirling embroidery of clipped hedges, colored gravel, and flowers, in perfect mirror symmetry, stretching from the palace toward the horizon. It's one of the most photographed gardens on Earth, and almost everyone photographs it wrong. Because here's the secret. Those gorgeous patterns aren't really meant for you, walking among them. Down at ground level, they flatten and dissolve. You see some hedges, a path, maybe a fountain. The design disappears. The parterres were composed to be seen from above, specifically from the upper windows of the palace, the rooms where the king looked down on his garden. From that one high window, and only from there, the whole thing snaps into focus. The symmetry, the avenues, the great canal shooting to the horizon, all of it arranged into perfect, total order. And that's the point. This is the age of the absolute monarch, the king who claimed to be the center of everything. So his architect built him a landscape that only made complete sense. From his exact position, looking down, the garden is a portrait of absolute power, painted for an audience of one. Everyone else gets the blurry version. The king gets the masterpiece. The eye in the sky has shrunk to a single pair of royal eyes, at a single high window, and the whole world below has been arranged to please them. Now jump to the strangest audience of all. Because for one brief, deadly period, architecture got built to be seen from above by someone you were trying to fool. During the Second World War, in Seattle, Boeing was building bombers in a vast factory, Plant 2, terrified it would be spotted and flattened from the air. So the U.S. Army did something extraordinary. They built an entire fake neighborhood on top of the factory roof. And not a cheap one. Plywood and canvas houses, streets, lawns, hundreds of trees, little cars. A complete, convincing suburb, except every building was under 2 meters tall, sitting on a flat roof the size of dozens of football pitches. From the ground it was nonsense. But the ground was never the point. So think about who this was designed for. A bombardier in an enemy aircraft, looking straight down, maybe 2 minutes to decide what he's seeing. His only information a flat, top-down photograph. So that's exactly what the camouflage was built to defeat. Not the human eye at street level, but the aerial photo, the plan view. The fake town was architecture composed for one viewer, the enemy overhead, and it had to read as ordinary suburb the instant he glanced down. It's the dark mirror of everything else here. The Nazca built upward to invite the eye in the sky. Boeing built upward to deceive it. Same instinct, turned into a weapon of disguise. And it worked, in a way we can't fully test. The bombers never came. The most carefully designed neighborhood, in Seattle, was one never meant to be real. Now into our own century, when, for the first time in history, anyone can put a camera in the sky. In California, Apple built its headquarters as a single, vast, perfect circle. A glass ring almost 1.5 kilometers around, about a mile to walk one lap, set inside its own private forest. And from the ground, right beside it, you genuinely cannot perceive the shape. It's too big and too low. The curve is so gentle it just looks like a long glass wall disappearing into trees. You could work there for years and never see the ring. It only becomes that iconic circle from directly overhead. And here's the modern twist. That is overwhelmingly how the world experiences this building. Not in person, in drone footage and satellite maps, shared millions and millions of times. The single most famous feature of a $5 billion building is a shape almost no human ever actually stands and looks at. They look at a picture of it, taken from the air. Now, officially, it's a ring for good reasons. Daylight, a green courtyard, everyone connected. But let's be honest as architects. A perfect circle is also the most recognizable, most screenshot-able shape you can make from above. Whether they'd admit it or not, this building was designed for the aerial photo, because in our era, the drone shot is its portrait. The audience overhead used to be a god, then a general, then a king. Now it's a camera on a quadcopter, and all of us, scrolling past the feed. And finally the audience overhead becomes the entire planet. Off the coast of Dubai, engineers dredged millions of tons of sand and rock off the seabed and sprayed it into the sea to build an artificial island in the exact shape of a palm tree, a central trunk, a crown of 17 radiating fronds, wrapped in a long crescent breakwater to hold back the waves. It's one of the largest things humans have ever deliberately shaped. And from a boat, or on one of its streets, you would have no idea. It just looks like coastline, roads, villas, beach. The palm, the entire reason it exists, is invisible from anywhere a human normally stands. It only appears from the air. And it's so enormous you don't even need a plane. It's plainly visible from space, sitting on the satellite map in your pocket right now. Open the map. There it is. A tree, drawn in land, in the sea. And that was the whole point. They didn't build a palm because palm tree shapes make good islands. They don't. The inner fronds get poor water flow. They built a palm because, in the age of the satellite photo and the shared screenshot, a shape you can recognize from orbit is the single most powerful piece of advertising on Earth. The Nazca built for gods they hoped were watching from the sky. Dubai built for a planet they knew was watching, because now everyone has the eye in the clouds in their hand. The audience above had finally become everyone. 7 designs. Everyone invisible from the ground. Everyone built for an eye in the sky. And watch how the audience overhead kept changing. The Nazca built for the gods. The mound-builders for the ancestors. The Star Fort for the general with a map. Versailles for one king at one window. The decoy town for an enemy they were trying to fool. Apple for the drone and the feed. The Palm Island for every satellite and phone on Earth. That's the quiet thread under all of it. Architecture has always had a second audience, the one looking straight down at the plan. We just kept changing who we thought was up there. The divine, the military, the royal, the enemy, the commercial, and finally us. The view from above used to belong to the gods. Now it belongs to everyone. So here's the test I'll leave you with. Next time you open a map and look down on your own town, that roundabout, that car park, the shape of the school. Ask who that view was really arranged for. Because more and more, the buildings around us are quietly designed for the one angle almost nobody standing there will ever see. Straight down from the sky. We're all the eye in the clouds now. I make these because the built world is far stranger than it looks from the pavement. So if you like seeing it from the angle nobody else points out, stick around. I'll see you in the next one.